Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. Corrie ten Boom said that. A Calvinist Christian who grew up in the Netherlands in the early 1900s. She helped her family during peace to offer shelter and support to those who were in need, and during war to hide Jews from the Germans in their own house. She spent time in concentration camps, and then she lived 39 more years to witness and write about what she had seen. And she said, "Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God." In March, we came into a pandemic wilderness. In May, we were reminded again by the killing of George Floyd that we are in a wilderness of racism. And this week, ballot margins of just a few thousand in states where there were millions of ballots cast reminded us of a wilderness of partisan divide. I keep hearing people say one way or the other in different words that this year, that this election have revealed something about America that they did not want to see. Our presiding Bishop Michael Curry has preached that our divide runs deeper than party or race. It includes class. It includes a sense of disenfranchisement and a fear that something dear is at risk of being taken away from us. A fear of risk. I knew that no matter who won that vote on Tuesday, I was going to wake up on Wednesday in a town where 400 people live below the poverty line, and in a country where the color of our skin has something to do, sometimes a lot to do, with how the Constitution gets applied to us. But I think that what Bishop Curry was spot on about is that what we fear more than these challenges, which we can put a name to, is an atmosphere that suggests that bringing up any of these realities, or bringing up American policing, or ecological devastation, or religious nationalism, that if we bring these up, everything will just explode. We question the safety of simply sharing our moral positions with a neighbor. Or worse, we even believe that such a conversation could not bear some good fruit. America has been hunted by the fear that it's all gotten beyond help. Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. Now, of course, Corrie ten Boom was drawing on the gospel in saying this, and we read there today, "The kingdom of heaven will be like this. It is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went away." Jesus was speaking here in Matthew about our readiness for the kingdom of God to burst through. Matthew seems to have shifted the frame of this parable from its other tellings in Mark and in Luke and in the lost gospel of the Nazarenes. So I just want to let you know that the horrible sounding master in this parable does not get off so easily in those other tellings. But the center of the parable remains, and maybe even is strengthened in Matthew, because after a long time, we read, the master returned. 2 of the slaves had put their talents to use and were celebrated. 1 let his fear rule him, and he buried his talent. And this slave ends up losing even what he tried to protect. The slave who buried his talent lost everything, lost himself, because he was stagnant. He had ability, we read. He was given something worth moving, but he froze. And remember here, the parable is a parable of the kingdom of God, not just financial counseling, or certainly any kind of commentary on slavery, right? The talents are whatever is born in you. And Jesus told us that if you put that into motion, it will increase. If you do, it will. If you don't, it won't. You have to get it moving. Especially on the day where we feel like we've got just one single talent. Like that's all we've got in our ability. This is a powerful expression of trusting an unknown future to a known God to get that one talent moving. Corrie ten Boom was a watchmaker, the first woman certified for this in the Netherlands. But she knew that her talents and her abilities were richer than that also, and she put her talents into the service of God and the service of neighbor. She was sent to the rationing card officer in town, an officer, a Dutch officer of the Nazis, whom she knew from before the war. She was sent to get 5 ration cards for her family. But when he asked her how many she needed, she opened her mouth and was surprised to hear 100 come out. And he handed those to her without question, and she got that food moving. The ten Booms had a large house. They had resistance architects come in and help them figure out how to build another secret living space into it. And they got that space in their house moving. And even during horrors, Corrie had a gift of awareness. She listened and learned and grew in stature through the war, and afterward chose to write and to speak. And so she got her awareness moving. And this moving literally was bringing a life out of death. And you're like, really? You're going to bring up the Nazis today? You know, the most horrible thing you can think of? Yes, because they're the Nazis. And getting moving, some food and some extra space in a house could overcome them, could overcome that death and bring out life. If you've got some extra food or an extra room in your house, don't raise your hand right now. Raise the eyes of your heart. We disciples of Jesus, who got 5,000 people fed by breaking 5 loaves of bread, who got a whole community reconciled by inviting a tax collector over for dinner, who got an empire transformed by loving on his most destitute neighbors. We follow a Messiah who would have us look right into poverty, right into racism, right into ecological devastation, right into militarism, and then look through them. Look through our fear that it's all beyond help and get what we've got moving. I promise there's a helpful word in here about pledging. I know it's Pledge Sunday. I'm going to give you something. Lyndon and I frequently lift our eyes to look into the need for restoration of the earth. We're trying to cut back on our carbon emissions by half from where we were in 2018. I am easily slowed down or paralyzed if I think about how it's the earth and we're 2 people. We've been eating less meat. We've installed more insulation, but I continue to know that the heavy carbon hitters in our home are our our travel and our electricity and our heating. When I first looked into the idea of solar panels, it was hard to figure out their net benefit to the world. There'll be more renewables on the grid. It's an immediate carbon reduction. They can power electric heat pumps, but they've also got to mine the materials for the panels. They've got a 30-year-ish lifespan. How are they going to be recycled? Should I just write my senators more for a larger change? And I got tired of thinking, actually, what's truer to say is I got afraid. I got afraid of doing the wrong thing. And so I did nothing. If that sounds familiar, that's me burying the talent. But a year later, a neighbor said to me, Reed, if you're serious about carbon, you got to check them out. And when I looked again, instead of hearing those fears, I managed to remember also this teaching. You've got to keep your talent moving. I don't have every answer for ecological restoration, but I've got a south-facing roof. And so the papers are signed now, and in mid-December, I will have solar panels covering that roof. And what's more, and this is crucial, going forward in that, keeping it moving, has opened again my trust and my creativity for the earth. So now I'm asking again about those heat pumps. And I really stopped buying all meat, except hot dogs. All right, I'm this close. This week on the carbon tracker that Deb Baker shared with us in August, I added to my list of goals, caulking all those little air gaps around the house. I mean, that's a very inexpensive job, and it's a lot less sexy than solar panels, but it's got a big return too. And so I've been kept moving. It is not just an object in motion that tends to stay in motion. This is also true of our souls. A soul in motion tends to stay in motion. Today is indeed Pledge Sunday at St. Andrews. So from 11 to 1, it'll be a giving party out on the driveway. We're going to have the offering plate out there to put your pledge in. And a whole host of bakers have prepared these fresh treats to celebrate. Individually wrapped. And John Gaffaro will be here filming us so we can make a gratitude film. Each of the last 3 years, the stewardship team has invited all of us to take stock of our gratitude and then to listen for what percentage of all we've been given, to listen for what percentage God is calling us to give back through the church. Giving as a percentage of your income. And I've said this about pledging in the last years, but the percentage itself is not magic. But as soon as it's a percentage, well, then you've implicated all 100 of the percents. As soon as you're talking about not just some pie, but 1/10 of a pie, well, then you start thinking, well, what about the whole, where's the rest of the pie going? This year, I would like to ask, what percentage do you need to give back in order to implicate everything you have? What pledge can you give that will get all of it moving? Whatever amount you give financially, you can never say again of any expense through the year that's less than your pledge, I can't afford that. Because what's become true is I have different priorities. I choose a different way. And this can have a snowballing effect on our courage. This first gift, this giving off the top, it connects with the other attentions that we give. It connects with our soul energy. When we have to put our resources when we have put our resources concretely into motion for the healing of the world, then we can stare into the fear that says, we're beyond help. And we can say, no, I'm in motion. And I desire to stay in motion. My soul is rolling on for healing. We can say, no, I have put my soul towards the work of racial reconciliation and of healing the earth and of feeding the hungry. So what proportion do you need to put in motion through a pledge in order to pull along all the rest of it, rolling on for justice, for freedom, for hope? Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God.